Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to take a look at yet another of these newest PNSO figures finally starting to show up here, which is pretty much a miracle as far as the Postal Service goes because they have been a total nightmare as far as the last month or two. But we are now finally receiving some of these PNSO figures, so this time we are going to take a look at a very cool looking figure here as far as this species of Ceratopsian goes, one that I do not have any previously of in my collection as far as this species goes. It's not a species you see get figures very often, and in fact this is probably the first one that I personally can recall from any company of this species. So PNSO continuing to release not only incredible figures, but some pretty obscure species, giving us figures that we normally wouldn't get otherwise, just like the Atopodentatus for one specifically. As far as the box art goes, we have a beautiful image of the Machairoceratops right here on the front. We take a look up here at the top. We've got yet another image there as well, and then once we actually spin it around, here we go, we have the Chinese side of the box. So I'm very excited to take a look at this. I love Ceratopsians, and we don't get too many PNSO Ceratopsians, so having a new one here is very exciting. So let's go ahead, open this up, and take a look at this Machairoceratops from PNSO. So straight away, as always, we have the booklet, and then just like you probably already have a pretty good idea of, the inside of the booklet looks just like this, like they always do. We have again another very nice image of the Machairoceratops, and another image up here at the top, and then kind of a silhouette of the Machairoceratops up there as well. So very nice images there, and then some information on PNSO and the Machairoceratops over here to the right. And then if we flip it over, there's also a Chinese side. So very nice addition to the set as always from PNSO. They continuously provide us with incredible quality with each and every release. And then here is our absolutely beautiful looking Machairoceratops. Such a really nice looking sculpt and a very striking paint scheme on this figure, I will say that. It's really awesome having a figure of this species now finally entering my collection. I don't get too many opportunities to enter a new Ceratopsian into my collection, so this one is specifically something that I was really excited about receiving just to be able to add a new Ceratopsian to my collection. However, I can say, looking at the figure straight away, one thing that is a little bit of a downside is the fact that this figure is the first one in quite a few releases from PNSO that I can say it doesn't really match up all that well to the prototype. It doesn't look too far off, but at the same time, there's definitely some pretty significant differences. Like if we actually bring the box back in here, and we take a look at the box art in comparison to the actual figure, it appears as though this one here has like a really nice dark wash, which is allowing each one of those scales there on the face to pop in a very nice and dramatic fashion. We don't see that at all on the version here as far as the actual factory released figure goes, and I feel like just generally the tones of color are off quite a bit. This one looks a lot brighter in comparison to what we see on the promotional images, and even the eye, actually, the eye looks gorgeously well painted there on the prototype, and the eye here in person is definitely not near as nice as that. Just pretty much your standard, I guess, factory released eye paint, because it just never looks as carefully painted or as beautiful. Just generally looking at the entire eye socket area of the version here from PNSO as far as the prototype goes, the entire eye socket area looks very different in comparison to the eye here on the factory released version. Still pretty close as far as like the overall design. You can see looks fairly similar to what we see on the promotional image there on the box, but the actual factory release figure definitely does not look as nice as the prototype did. But regardless, I'm still pretty excited about the figure, so let's go ahead and get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, even though the detail isn't quite as vibrant as we see on the prototype, you can see that this thing is absolutely gorgeous as far as the actual detailing goes up here on the face. Once you get a nice closer look, you can see how beautiful that scale detail is, and how just there is so much variation as far as the scale detail and the skin texture goes. So many different versions of scales and variations of scales are included up here on the face. You can definitely see that the nostril is sculpted quite nicely, as is the beak. Machairoceratops has a very kind of like a gaping open mouth here. I don't know if it's just calling for a mate, if it's just generally angry, but it's got something to say, and it is definitely letting us know whatever that is in a very, very loud fashion. You can see the inside of the mouth is really beautifully sculpted. Absolutely gorgeous detailing in there. Very nice realistic coloration included inside the mouth as well, and you can even see the teeth and everything are included inside the mouth. So PNSO absolutely nailing it as far as the detailing and the paintwork on the inside of the mouth goes. Really awesome work in that aspect. But you could see some really nice paintwork up here on the face, even though it doesn't match perfectly to the prototype. There is some really nice variations of lighter and darker browns included up here in the face, and it's all nice and naturally applied. Very nice realistic transitions between the colors, and everything looks gorgeous as far as that goes. You can see kind of like some paint up here on the top of the snout of the Machairoceratops, like they've included some gray up there. The horns in general are painted really nicely with a nice black coloration, and they very smoothly transition to a white as you get closer to the tips. It looks super nice. Very striking look for the horns on the Machairoceratops. I absolutely love that aspect of the figure. You could see even the lower jaw sports an incredible sculpt as far as that scale detail goes. It just looks absolutely beautiful in every way. Coming up here onto the frill of the dinosaur, the scale detail continues to look incredible. You have some nice black speckles and also a darker brown that kind of runs around the border of the frill. You can see that the kind of spikes that run along the frill are also nicely painted, and the frill has a very nice design to it. Nothing overly flashy, but I think it looks pretty darn good overall. You can also see kind of a yellowish coloration right here in the center of the head, but you can see that the actual design up here on the frill is very nicely applied, which is something I was really happy to see on the Dinosaurs, how the design on the frill of that one was very smooth and realistic looking. That's the same thing that I see here on this Machairoceratops. And even though the paint job, could be better as far as matching up to the prototype, what I'm actually seeing here is really beautiful up close. I must say that I'm still very impressed with the figure as a whole. Once you actually get nice and close and take a look at it, even though like certain areas, like right here, you can see it's similar to the Dinosaurs. There's like a gloss coat that's been added, and I don't like that at all. I really, really don't like when they add the gloss coat to the face of their Ceratopsians, which seems to be kind of something that PNSO has been a pretty big fan of lately, but that's not quite as drastic as what we had seen on the Dinoceratops, so it doesn't stand out quite as much, which means that it doesn't bother me quite as much, but still something we could have gone without as far as this figure goes. But the frill, I think, is really beautifully done. Very nice paint application up there as well. Coming back into the neck, you can continue to see some really nice scale detail as well as quite a few wrinkles going on here in the neck region. Some larger scaling here on the underside and the throat area of the Machairoceratops. Coming down into the underside of the body, you can continue to see how beautiful that scale detail looks. It does kind of appear as though maybe there is a little bit of a dark wash included on the figure, but it's not quite as nice looking as what we had seen on the actual prototype. Coming up into the body, you can see some more really nice creasing of the skin going on here in the stomach region as this leg is pushing back and this leg is pushing forward into the stomach region, really nicely bunching up that skin. And you can see the stomach region here kind of lighten up as far as the coloration goes before it transitions back out into the very nice and appealing looking brownish colorations that we do have here. It's like a very light tannish brown, and I think it looks almost like a yellowish brown actually, and I think it looks really, really good as far as that coloration goes, and the transitions between those colors is really smooth as well. Coming down here into the leg, that leg sculpt looks beautiful. Nice stripes as we move down the leg. All the stripes on the figure are very naturally applied. They don't look like paint on a figure either. They look very natural as far as the actual application goes. Beautiful transition to a nice darker coloration down here on the foot. The foot sculpt looks great, as it always does when it comes to a PNSO figure. Really nice detailing throughout the entire side of the dinosaur. You can pick up on some kind of like osteoderms pretty much all over the figure, but the scale detail is gorgeous as well. You can see sort of like a very light row of scutes that run down the spinal column of the Machairoceratops. The hip bone is present right there. You can see some more beautiful musculature in the thigh of the dinosaur. As we move down here, you can see the kneecap is present. Very nice calf muscle as well. The animal looks nice and strong like it would. in real life. Very nice foot sculpt on the rear foot as well. Again, a nice transition to that darker coloration. And then coming back here into the tail, you can see that kind of thigh pulling on the skin from the tail, nicely stretching that skin. It looks beautiful as well. And we have the same style of sculpt and detail as far as the really nice scale detail in that kind of mixture with the osteoderms moving out here the length of the tail. And those very striking stripes, which the dark stripes is kind of like a mixture of a dark brown and almost like a black, or maybe just a very dark burnt umber brown. It looks more like a black, but it's nice to see a few different tones of color included in the stripes, but the darker stripes and the lighter body really make the figure look very striking, if you ask me. And then over here, you could see on the previous side, we saw kind of like some scrunching of the skin here in the neck right there. This side, because the dinosaur has its head turned toward the left, you can see that the skin is stretching beautifully over here. So very nice attention to detail that PNSO is very good at adding into their figures. Coming back here into the leg looks fantastic yet again. You can even see it lighten up a little bit right here, so some nice variation of color, very realistically applied as far as that goes. The musculature is really nicely on display on this front leg. You can really see it highlighted quite nicely overall. The foot sculpt looks beautiful yet again, just like always down here. You can see some more of those stripes and everything that kind of run the course of the body, stripes and spots and stuff. And you can see some more nice skin detail here in the lower part of the stomach region, with kind of skin scrunching up there with the leg pushing into the body, skin stretching off of the body right here as the rear leg is pulling it back and stretching it. So as always, again, some more really nice attention to detail on the part of PNSO. Beautiful scale detail everywhere on the figure, some more nice osteoderms, just like we had seen on the previous side. The hip bone is elaborated nicely from the skin right here. And then moving down into the leg, again, the leg looks nice and very large and muscular, like we would expect it to be. Very big, bulky animal. Beautiful foot sculpt over here, just like we had seen on every foot so far. And again, some more really nice skin texture, skin detail here on the rear of the leg running out into the tail. And the tail looks beautiful, just like we had seen on the previous side. Very nice curve in the tail, and then the Machairoceratops as well has a curve to the head as it's looking to the left. So this is an absolutely beautiful sculpt from PNSO. I don't ever expect anything different as far as the sculpting of their figures goes. A little underwhelming in the paint aspect in comparison to the promotional images, but honestly, as far as a factory release figure goes, I still think the actual paint application that we are given here is beautiful as well. As far as a size goes on our Machairoceratops, for a length, you are looking at about the 6-inch range, or about, I'd say, in between 15 and 15 and a half centimeters, closing in at about 15 and a half centimeters, maybe a little bit shorter. And then for a height, the highest point would definitely be those horns on the top of the frill, and you are looking at about a little over 3 inches, like 3 1/8, and about 8 centimeters, somewhere in that range. So a little under 3 1/4 inches, roughly. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, next to our PNSO Machairoceratops. And just like with the recent Ceratopsia, you could see that it is a smaller sized figure overall. And quite a few of the recent PNSO figures have been on the smaller side, and this one definitely fits pretty much right in there with those. And here we have the Machairoceratops next to a few other of the recent PNSO offerings, which we have the Lambeosaurus, the Sinoceratops, and Sauropelta, which the Sauropelta, I think I would have said previously, was the smallest, but either way, still a fairly small figure overall. So this PNSO Machairoceratops is awesome. Another really good figure to add to the PNSO line, which there has just been a ton lately, a plethora of PNSO figures that have just been bombarded upon us nonstop from PNSO, and so far it does not seem like that's going to cease for a little bit yet, so we just have to sit back and enjoy the ride, I guess, but definitely getting some fantastic figures from PNSO lately, and I'm really happy to get this one specifically because the Machairoceratops, again, is a species of Ceratopsian that I did not previously have any figures of in my collection at all, so to have one enter my collection is awesome enough, but to have it from PNSO, one of, in my opinion, the leading companies when it comes to dinosaur models, is even better. You can see the figure as a whole is gorgeous sculpt-wise, absolutely overloaded with beautiful sculpt and detail, including pretty much every aspect of detail and movement within the body of the figure that you would expect to find for this Ceratopsian in the positioning that the body is currently in. PNSO never skimps out as far as detail in their figures sculpt, and that is no different with this Machairoceratops. Beautifully sculpted in every possible way. Dare I say, some of these newer sculpts from PNSO may actually be even more highly detailed than some of the more recent figures as far as PNSO has released, like the Lambeosaurus we just recently saw there. I feel like as far as like skin folding and stuff goes, this figure is even better than that. So it really shows that PNSO is continuing to improve. Even with this latest run, they are improving as they go on with this run of figures, which is, in my opinion, extremely impressive. The paint on the figure, again, isn't quite as nice as the prototype. I would have definitely rathered something a little closer to what we saw in the prototype, especially in the eye area and the head area in general. I feel like the paint application on this one, although it does look really nice, looked much better on the prototype. But with that said, the paint that we have here on this figure specifically, I still think turned out pretty darn nice overall. And if I had been introduced to this figure with no prior knowledge of the prototype at all, I still would have been very impressed, because I feel like it's a gorgeous looking paint scheme, very nice light body color, and then those darker stripes play off of it so well and really highlight the entire figure, really make it look overall extremely striking, but in a nice natural way. And all of the application of the paint is very nice and naturally applied. Nothing on the figure looks like paint or anything like that. It generally looks like body color, except maybe the eyes. The eyes look more like paint, I would say, than body color. But that was also the same issue that we had with the recent Dinosaurs as well. The eyes were not really that great, but the rest of the figure looked really good. So similar to this Machairoceratops. But regardless, I still think it's an incredibly nice figure of a very obscure Ceratopsian. So if you would like to pick this up, I will include a link in the description to Dan's Dinosaurs, where you can head on over there right now and pick up this beautiful PNSO Machairoceratops. So make sure you check the link in the description, head on over to Dan's Dinosaurs and order this very cool figure, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.